This week, Vergennes Chief of Police, George Merkel, helps us explore the consequences that mainstreaming marijuana and policies like safe injection sites are likely to have on a law enforcement apparatus overwhelmed with the opioid epidemic. Chief Merkel, last year, Vermont became the first state to legalize marijuana through legislative action. What has been the impact of legalization?
It's created a lot of discussion. And Vermont has been in the process for a while, getting us to this point, but there's been a lot of legislative discussion, if you will, about how we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
And I'll go on record like I have before that I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it's a good idea. However, if the state decides that they're going to do this, they need to make sure the process is in place, the proper checks and balances are in place. There's many different facets of legalization. And while we, law enforcement, are on the periphery of some of those, from the highway safety standpoint and the safety to our community, we want to see some things in place. For instance, there's a discussion right now amongst some legislative leaders and the governor about saliva testing. I think that's a key component. When you have somebody who's impaired by marijuana or some other drug or polydrug use or polyalcohol drug use, you have to have a mechanism to determine what it is that they're using, whether they're impaired, and how we're going to approach that. And in the past, I think a lot of times before we really became aware of just how to identify drug issues with the operators, a lot of time it was just dismissed as alcohol, because a lot of times the two of them together.
And we've already established that Vermont is raging. There's an opioid epidemic raging. There's heroin and fentanyl happening. And so officers are overwhelmed. And so now when we are legalizing marijuana, that complicates everything. Help me understand, why would a state want to legalize another substance when there is there's like an epidemic raging through the state?
I can't answer that question. I know, obviously, there's money involved. There's money to be made. And when you do something, and when you make a decision, I believe a legislator makes a decision based on the fact of money alone, that's incorrect. Now, some people argue about civil liberties. It's my right to do what I want to do.
Right.
In that case, that's true.
Yeah.
However, those decisions don't always singularly impact the person who's using it. They affect the families. They affect other people on the road. We're seeing this now. And it's all relative, whether it's a large department or small department, it creates a problem. It creates an issue. And we do not have the people or the money or the resources to address it.
And so tying it all together, what I'm seeing is that while there are some really innovative steps that have been taking place in terms of rehab, for rehab and medical assisted treatment for addicts, there isn't equal support for law enforcement, or steps are being taken that really undermine the process. So you want to legalize marijuana and complicate things, or you want to have a safe injection site, or decriminalize buprenorphine, which can also be abused. And so all these factors, it just seems very confused to me, and I really don't understand if you want to be serious about addressing the opioid epidemic, why would you take steps that then undermine it?
Well, substance abuse is substance abuse.
Yeah.
And marijuana is different than heroin and these other issues. However, it costs money. It has an impact. Now, let me ask you this question. Why do you think who in their right mind would say, let's legalize a substance and then spend $300,000 to teach people not to use it, or to make people aware of the fact of the dangers of it?
Right.
And when I sat there in the legislature and I listened to that, I didn't understand that rationale. So you've got that, and for people to say that the black market will be reduced, I don't buy that.
Right.
And for people to say that if you legalize it, somehow it's going to become more readily available, it's going to be more readily accepted, it takes on the image of being a little bit more benign than it really is.
Yeah.
And it's not.
And it's not.
It's not.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing it all the time.
And I think we can just end with the fact that it's not just a single heroin user or fentanyl user. There's something, as you said, polydrug use. And so that really, in terms of law enforcement and medical treatment, it really complicates the issue.
And you can't we can't mistake that. Just because people use marijuana means they automatically transition to heroin or some other drug. However, there is a process there, and there is a connection.
Okay, Chief Merkel, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.